and we will go ahead and get started. A big thank you for everyone that joined us today. So you are here for the Zoom training because we will be talking about the process of completing the fixed meal price food service management company request for proposal, the template and the exhibits. So Allie, would you like to move to the next slide? And we would like you to type your name, your school district name, and your email in the chat box. Everyone has their microphone muted. If you'd like, please turn on your camera. That's certainly your call. And use the chat box to ask questions, and we will be answering those questions at the end of today's presentation. Next slide. So we would like to introduce our nutrition services team members that work with our school food authorities, referred to as SFAs throughout this presentation, that are interested or are pursuing a rebid for their food service management company contracts. We have Allie Lampman. Allie is our Zoom operator today, and Allie is located in the Lincoln office. We have Erica Arter, who is located in the Lincoln office. My name is Sean Vondracek, and I'm located in the Lincoln office. We have Katie Part, who is not on the slide, who is our Director of Nutrition Services. We have Laura Lutz, that is located in our North Platte office. Laura, Jessica, and Aspen, they conduct the first year review visits for those schools in the western part of the state. Once again, we have Laura, we have Jessica from Mount Ski, and we have Aspen Shirley in the North Platte office. Your presenters today are Allie, Erica, and myself. Next slide. So who's in our audience today? We have our school food authorities that are currently in year 4 of their food service management company contracts that are required to rebid if they want to continue contracting with a food service management company. And we have SFAs interested in pursuing a food service management company contract for the first time in school year 24-25. So once again, if you just joined us, please enter your name, school district name, and email address in the chat. Next slide. So what's our agenda for today? Well, the training is recorded, so you can come back and view it at a later date if something isn't clear. It will be recorded and posted on the Nutrition Services website. So we are going to be talking about the SFA's future food service operations, which is imperative in completing the RFP, the request for proposal, because we are looking at not only next year, but operations in the future. We'll be diving deeper into the RFP process, the process of completing the template and the exhibits. We will be talking about completing the checklist to make sure all documents are submitted to Nutrition Services for approval, and where to save your files. Allie will be going into depth about how to save your files in a SharePoint folder. And at the end of today's presentation, we will be answering your questions that you may have about the process. Our goal is to wrap up no later than 12, and we will move forward with the next slide. So do your research and gain information is important. at the present time. We want you to review the USDA guidance on contracting with a food service management company. This is imperative that you review this guidance manual. If you receive federal dollars, then you must follow the federal regulations pertaining to contracting, outsourcing your food service to a food service management company. So we ask that you read the guidance manual. It has great information in it. Next slide. So let's talk about planning for next school year and beyond. This is a 1-year contract with the option of 4 1-year renewals. So once again, it's a 1-year contract. You have the option of renewing the contract for an additional 4 years, but it's an annual renewal. The contract year begins July 1st and runs through June 30th. So it coincides with the school year. So we want you to consider changes in the next 5 years that would impact your food service program. That could be, are you adding new buildings? Are you remodeling? Are you reconfiguring grade groups? So those are all things to think about. New programs. Would you be adding preschool meals? Would you be participating in the after-school snack program? Are you looking at maybe exploring different ways to operate your existing programs, such as a grab-and-go breakfast or breakfast after the bell? And then what are your plans for increasing farm to school efforts? So all things to think about as you're thinking about not only next year, but what could be happening in the next 4 years after next year. Now, that's not to say that you can't go out for bid again. As I said, it's a 1-year contract. If at some point you would be maybe unhappy with the services you are receiving, then yes, you can certainly go out for rebid at any time for the next school year. So just emphasizing that it is just a 1-year contract with the option of the 4 annual renewals. So next slide. So now's the time to contact other SFAs with food service management company contracts. We have 42 SFA, school food authorities, with food service management company contracts. That information is provided to you in the RFP template that was mailed to you last week that you will be completing. We have 5 food service management companies that are currently operating in Nebraska, and we have a list of schools on that handout that contract with a specific food service management company. So reach out, if you have questions about how companies are operating in districts, then the best way to know that is to reach out to the superintendent at that particular school district and ask. We also have 4 food service management companies on that list that have contacted our office and have expressed interest in contracting in Nebraska. So reach out to those companies. Now we're starting the solicitation period. So the best way to look at those other companies would probably be going to their website and doing the research. Now is not the time for management companies to come on site and provide guidance, because we're entering the solicitation period for free and open competition, and we want to make sure everybody's on the same playing field. So next slide. Get ready, get set, go. Let's start preparing the RFP document. It was released, as I said, last week, and we have due dates for completion to keep everything on track to ensure that we have a contract in place by July 1st of 2024. So the RFP template and exhibits need to be submitted to NDE, your assigned program specialist, no later than January 15th. Your assigned program specialist will work with you throughout the process to ensure that the information that is included in the RFP template and in the exhibits is a clear representation so that every food service management company is getting that same information, and we're creating a clear picture of the food service operation that's operating in your district. Once again, your responsiveness is critical in order to have that contract in place by July 1st. We have made the process as easy as possible, but it still requires a lot of information on your part to complete the template and the exhibits. So it's best to start now so that we can work through the specifics and ensure that, yes, we meet that January 15th deadline. Next slide. So the good news for today is we are not going to be reviewing the entire RFP template. The RFP becomes the contract. We are going to be focusing our attention today on those pages of the RFP that require your information. Now, please take your time and read the entire RFP template. It is very important that you are knowledgeable about what is in the template. This is a state-specific template that has been developed by Nutrition Services to guide you to ensure that all regulations are included in the template and that we're gathering the information that a company would need to submit a responsive and responsible proposal to your district. So I'm going to have Allie go ahead and switch to the example that we provided you in the email that we sent. If you'd like to follow along, please pull that up. And we will walk through what is necessary that needs to be completed in the RFP template. Well, the first page is pretty easy in that it just requires the name of your school district. That your district is preparing this RFP, and it's the starting point for completing the template. So let's move to the next slide, or as we scroll down your handout. And on this page, that first paragraph is very important. You have an agreement with the Department of Education Nutrition Services to operate the school meals program and other programs at other child nutrition programs at your district. Nutrition Services, NDE, does not have an agreement with a food service management company. The agreement is between your district and the food service management company. We have no recourse with a management company because our agreement is with the district. You have to follow, you are responsible for ensuring that the rules and regulations of the program are enforced and followed. You are giving that authority in some sense to the food service management company with contracting with them to provide the certain aspects of your food service program. But the district is still held responsible if there are problems with the operation of the program, if rules and regulations are not followed. So throughout the entire contracting process, we strongly encourage you to consult with your legal counsel to ensure that any particulars that the districts would find necessary are included in the contract. As I said, this is a contract between the district and the food service management company. So it is very important that although we do not have the agreement with the food service management company for the operation in your district, we approve everything to ensure that everything is complete in the contracting process. So NDE must approve the entire request for proposal package prior to proposal solicitation. So releasing the RFP package must be approved by NDE Nutrition Services, your assigned program specialist. The SFA must submit the following items for review and approval to NDE after the SFA has selected the food service management company and before the contract can be signed. So we're involved in the entire process. Our offices, your program specialist will be working with you that we must receive all of these pieces of information that are listed on the screen, A through G, prior to approving the contract. And that also includes approval of the completed RFP package before solicitation, the proposal that is selected from the food service management company, any addendums, and then the following information that is on the page in front of you. So NDE must approve everything before the contract can be signed and implemented. It cannot be implemented prior to NDE approval and signatures of the district and the food service management company. Moving on to the next slide. We include a sample legal notice for your benefit. This must appear in the Omaha World Herald one time. The guidance manual indicates it needs to appear in a statewide newspaper. And for Nebraska, the statewide newspaper is the Omaha World Herald. It needs to appear one time in the notification section. And then that same legal notice is sent to all food service management companies listed on page 69 and 70 of the RFP document. That is to ensure that we have solicited as many companies as possible that may be interested in operating in your district. So there is a timeline that is followed. Once again, we have released the RFP template that was released prior to November 1st. We released it on October 31st. We have a deadline of December 1st for SFAs to contact our office if they're interested in pursuing a contract for school year 24-25. Once again, we've talked about that January 15th deadline to submit the district's completed RFP package and exhibits. That does not mean that that package is ready for approval. That is when your program specialist will be reviewing it. If you get it submitted prior, then you're first on our list to look at what you submitted. So if you get it done, and we've had some districts get it done before the end of December, that's fine. That just means that we're going to have additional time to provide you feedback. You will be a priority because you submitted it first, and we take them in the order that they are received by your program specialist. So just keep that in mind. We want plenty of time to assist you in making sure that your RFP template and exhibits is complete and accurate and represents what is actually occurring in your district. March 1st is the last date for the RFP notification to be placed in the Omaha World Herald under the legal notification section. Once again, all companies have been sent that same legal notification. And then May 15th is the deadline for your program specialist to receive the proposal to move forward with finalizing the contract. And then July 1st is the start of the new program year, and that's the first date of execution for the contract, if everything goes as planned. Okay. So moving on to the next slide. You're going to be indicating that who is in charge of this process. That is the person that will be responsible for completing the RFP template. And so that's indicated in the template. Phone number, email, the procurement method. Important information is contained in this section, that for Nebraska, we use a fixed price RFP template, resulting in a fixed price contract. The process of the notification to solicit the proposals in the Omaha World Herald. We want to make sure that we get an adequate number of qualified responses. So we ensure that the notification is sent to all companies that are operating or expressing interest in operating in Nebraska. And then the contract is awarded to the most responsible and responsive food service management company whose proposal is most advantageous to the SFA with price and other factors considered. So same opportunity to complete. So when we talk in number 2 about open and free competition, we want to make sure everyone is on the same playing field, so that we want everyone to have the same opportunity to compete for your business. And so with that process, then we need to make sure everyone is receiving the same information, that we're not having on-site visits from food service management companies during this process, so that everyone is hearing the same thing, receiving the same information. And also, after the proposal is selected, there is usually some back and forth about clarification of the information in the proposal, and that would take the form of an addendum to the proposal. And so that is a process also. So just kind of going through the steps to get to that contract, that final contract. Next slide. The timeline. Inserting dates is one of the last steps before submitting the RFP to NDE for final approval, because it's a process. Everything has to be approved by your program specialist. It has your RFP template that you complete, your exhibits all have to be clear before it can be approved. And so those dates that are indicated in the template are a little bit fluid at the current time, because we don't know what's going to be entailed in getting that clarification. And that's influenced by your availability, your timeliness, our availability, because we're also conducting administrative reviews during this time. So, you're our top priority, but there is some back and forth that's going to happen. So we ask that you not put in the dates when you submit it to your program specialist. You can certainly put in tentative dates, but just know those could very well change. And the 3 dates that we are looking for would be the date that the notification appears in the Omaha World Herald. That is the start of the 60-day solicitation period. The mandatory pre-proposal conference, which typically takes place approximately 2 weeks after the notification appears in the Omaha World Herald. This is when companies that have requested the proposal are required to come on site for a pre-proposal conference. This gives the company the opportunity to view the food service facilities and observe the operation when meals are being served to students. So it's for the food service management company's benefit, because if they are submitting a proposal, they actually need to see the operation in action. And we will go through that, what entails in the pre-proposal conference a little bit later. So that's an important date. And then the deadline for receiving proposals is an important date, because that is after the 60-day solicitation period. It can't be shorter than the 60 days. It can be slightly longer, but it's that deadline of when the company has to submit the proposal to the district. And then the other tasks that are listed on the screen, they're somewhat fluid in dates. And so we do not ask that a date be put in. It's just being aware that, yes, the committee needs to score the proposals. That needs to happen within 5 to 7 business days of receiving the proposal. That the district submits the proposal and items A through G, which we've talked about, as indicated on page 1 of the RFP, to NDE, so that we can review the proposal. The district may choose to take it to the Board of Education prior to NDE proposal. And then companies want to know if they have received, have the contract. And so just letting those companies know that did not receive the contract, that they didn't, and that's just within 60 calendar days of receiving the proposal. And then everything has to be submitted to NDE to finalize that contract, and it has to be approved by NDE. So that's why those dates are somewhat fluid. Next slide, or next, scroll down, please. I addressed the mandatory on-site pre-proposal meeting. This is the opportunity, as I said, for companies to come on site and view the facilities. It needs to be conducted on a school day, and companies need to have the opportunity to view meal service for each grade group that is being served. So if you have a pre-K building where meals are served, if you have elementaries that serve K through 5, middle school, high school, they want to see the food service operation at each one of those. Now, if you're a district that has multiple elementaries, multiple middle schools, it's only necessary to view one. You can certainly view more, but we're talking about a short window of time to observe meal service. So this isn't an extensive visit. This is just the opportunity to observe meal service during operation, to get the flow of the line, the layout, the point of service meal count where your cashiers are located. Companies are looking at what items are sold a la carte. They're looking at those aspects. They also want to see the kitchen. They want to see what equipment is at those kitchens. They want to see storerooms, refrigerator, freezers. They want to see all of that, because that's going to gauge what's available to them to operate the program. But that can be after meal service, the more extensive tour. So with that being said, that is the pre-proposal meeting. Now, all questions need to be submitted in writing by the company. And then all companies that are at the proposal meeting receive the answers to those questions. We advise not answering anything during the pre-proposal meeting, just because everything needs to be very clear and in writing. You don't want to provide any misinformation. So all questions, anything that a company would ask needs to be submitted in writing. And then the response is sent to all of those companies that are in attendance at the pre-proposal meeting. So then with that, after the pre-proposal meeting, we have some deadlines of when questions have to be submitted by companies, and when they have to be answered by the district. And so those are dates that are important, that we want to give a company plenty of time to ask their questions, and then the district needs to respond back to those questions in sufficient time for the company to be able to take that information as they prepare their proposal. And with that, questions may be submitted and answered periodically through the process. It's just everyone needs to receive those question and answers that are at the pre-proposal meeting. So it's not always a good idea to wait till that last date to send out questions. And your program specialist, your assigned program specialist, please involve them in the question and answers. We want to make sure everything's very clear and that the question has been answered sufficiently. So involve your program specialist throughout this process. That's why we're here, to help you throughout the process. And so that's the information on this page. Let's scroll to the next page. And then when the proposals are submitted, we ask that in the template, submit 2 hard copies and 1 electronic copy of the proposal. That's what the food service management companies are submitting to you on that due date. It can be, the electronic copy can be on a jump drive, or it can be attached to the email It needs to be sent so that you can send it on to your program specialist for review. So that's the information. You're going to receive 2 unless you indicate that you want a different number of hard copies to be sent. And so you have that box that's available for you to indicate if you want more than 2 hard copies. They need to be addressed to the SFA, and they need to be submitted to the date and by the time you've indicated in the RFP template. That's one of those important dates. And with that, we go through some more language and indicate that we have what's called Appendix A that's included in the RFP template, and that offers the SFA the opportunity to add additional services that aren't addressed in the template. So just bringing your attention to Appendix A. We move on down to the next page. And the proposal needs to contain all of the information that's included in the template. We give the company what information they need to provide in their proposal. Included in the template are some appendices that have to be signed by the company that are included. And when they submit their proposal, they need to include those signature pages. And so when the proposals are received, we've mentioned that they need to be reviewed and scored by a committee. And a committee means at a minimum 2 members. And they will be scored based on the weighted criteria that's included in the RFP template, which you determine, which we will show the scoring page. We will show the assignment of point page, and there's also a scoring page included in the template. Each committee member must evaluate the proposal independently and assign a point value to each award criteria. Scoring cannot be completed as a group. And that information, the scoring sheets and the combined total of the scoring pages is submitted to NDE. That's part of our review. We have had food service management companies request the completed combined scoring sheets because they want to know why they didn't get the business. And so we want those scoring sheets to be very clear, and there needs to be a definite difference in scoring to show why a company was awarded the contract. So we can talk about that a little bit later when we get to the scoring sheets. So moving on down. This is the scoring page, or it's the weighted criteria page. It's not the scoring sheet. You're going to use the weighted criteria page to do scoring. And so the different categories, the award criteria, we have cost, we have service capacity plan, going on down. These are all addressed in the template earlier that the company needs to provide information on. And then you need to assign the weight of the scoring to the different categories. Cost has to receive the highest number of points. That is a procurement regulation from USDA. So be aware of that. But it is your decision on how you want to base your points. Other than cost has to receive the highest number of points. The total must equal 100. You must decide how you're going to be awarding those points to the different categories. We've had some districts have some very unusual ways of assigning points, which may make it difficult to determine how they're weighted, where they're not even numbers, but that is certainly your choice. The example on the screen just shows, it easily broken down into, increments of 5 points, but you can certainly decide how you want to do that. This is only an example of, as we look at this award criteria, different things may be important to different districts. So you can make that determination. So let's scroll to the next page. This is where we get into the specifics of what you are currently doing in your food service operation. We indicate all of the programs that the district is currently operating in. So this is going to require, what are we doing in our district currently? So detailed information about what you're currently doing. The next slide, or as we scroll down, this is the anticipated future programs. And so if it is remotely possible, because we are talking about not only what's going to be happening in school year 24-25, next school year, but we're anticipating those 4 annual renewals. So we're looking forward to what's going to be happening really essentially 5 years out. So we encourage that if it's not marked already as an existing program on the prior page, you mark it on this page, because we don't know, what's going to be happening in the future. Maybe you have a clear idea, but I think living through the pandemic has proven, no, we don't really know what's going to happen with what programs we might be participating in. So, your program specialist will work with you on this page, but we will highly suggest that anything you're not currently participating in is marked on this page. So if you know the details, include them. If you don't have a date, that's fine, because you don't know. We're marking it because it could happen. And if it's not marked, it could result in having to go out for bid, which is not a bad thing, remember. But if that's not your intention to have to go out for bid again and go through this process, we're just ensuring you don't have to. So as we scroll on down that page, now this is your example. This is our hypothetical school where we've just indicated probably more information than you need, but we're creating that picture of what could happen at this make-believe school. So let's move on down to the next page. We're going to be talking about catering. Catering is those things that aren't specific to the food service operation. They're non-program things that include non-reimbursable snacks. Maybe the preschool requests morning snack. There is no program that addresses preschool morning snack in the school meals program. And so that is a non-reimbursable snack that would be treated like a catering. where the company would bill the preschool program or the district, and it would be outside of the food service program. So the company is securing the product, they're billing the preschool program, and the preschool program or general fund will make payment directly to the food service management company. The same thing would apply for meetings, teacher in-service days, banquets, parties, anything that is additional, an additional request that the school has of the food service management company. Now read this section very carefully because it details, you know, that it needs to be a school function. Okay, so the company can't do catering for a business and use your food service operation to do that. Okay, so read this section very carefully. It has to be a school club, organization, or program. So let's move on down. Now we get more into the specifics of your operation, about providing special diets. And one of those that's addressed in the template is the substitution of fluid milk. And a district is required to provide a substitution if it is on a medical statement from a licensed healthcare professional. That is a requirement, that if the household submits that information, the district is required to do that. The district is not required to provide a milk substitution if it is a request from a household. It is not on the medical statement. It is on a medical request or a food request form. And so the district has to make the decision if they want the company to provide that milk substitute when it doesn't rise to the occasion of being required by a medical statement. And the reason that is in here is that's an additional cost that the company is responsible for with the fixed meal pricing. So they want to make sure they know what the district's intention is if the district wants to provide that substitute. So that's why it's in here. Moving on down. We have pre-marked purchases. This just indicates what the company is going to be responsible for, except for Exhibit D, which we will go into later in the presentation. Erica will be talking about the exhibits. The designation of program expenses and duties. And so if it's marked as a district responsibility, then the district is responsible for the purchase of. Moving on down. The top of the page talks about the Buy American provision. Please read through. As I said, you have to read through this entire document. Please do not skim anything because it details what the requirements are of the program. As we move on down to USDA foods, that is also addressed in the template. And some of the boxes are pre-marked for your convenience. We ask that if you have any questions about the USDA foods, your entitlement, which is handled through a different office than Nutrition Services, that you contact Chad Moore. He is the director of USDA Foods. It is administered through the Department of Health and Human Services. when a company submits a proposal with a fixed meal price, they are submitting their fixed meal pricing with no entitlement included. The district receives a credit for USDA foods. This is a very important area. We want to make sure everyone is very clear. Read through this section as we scroll on down. The next section we want to talk about is employees. What is going to happen with employees at your district? If you have an existing food service management company, you will probably be indicating what you're currently doing, that they're employed by the food service management company, but in not all instances is that true, that they're employed by both the SFA and the food service management company. We have employees that are district employees. We have employees that are food service management company employees. The example that we've included indicates both. We have some that are district employees. In our example, it's some paras, school paras that are operating the cashiering stations during lunch, which we will address later on when we look at the exhibits, because you're going to need to indicate that information. And it's important to note who will be employed by the food service management company. Their employment status will be for the duration of the contract and impacts the proposed fixed meal pricing. So it's very, very important we have clear information in this section and then in the exhibits. Moving on down. The food service director is always an employee of the food service management company. And you need to indicate if your district is willing to have a shared food service director, which would impact the fixed meal pricing. The company should compensate the district if the district chooses to have a shared. There's some important information in this section that addresses a shared food service director, that the company would be submitting 2 different pricing proposals, one for a full-time food service director and one for a part-time or a shared director. And so this is an important section. Make your decision if you're willing to have a shared food service director, and then the company is responsible for providing additional information about how that director would be shared. Kind of an untypical situation, but it has happened. And so that is why it's included in the template, because we want to make sure we address everything and what the district wants and is willing to do, or wants to do, I guess is a better word. So moving on down. I want to talk about the financial terms, and this is a very important section. We address meal equivalency factor in the template because when we are talking a fixed meal price contract, the company is proposing what their fixed meal pricing will be for breakfast, lunch, for all the different programs. But when we start talking about non-program foods such as a la carte sales, adult meals, those sales are totaled and divided by the meal equivalency factor to determine how many meals, when we're looking at how many meals, how many lunch meals would that be? that's why the meal equivalency factor is important. And that is a number that's included in your template. We provide it every year through the renewal process. It is the current federal free rate of reimbursement plus the additional 8 cents for the performance-based incentive. It includes the state match for reimbursable lunches, and then the value of USDA entitlement, which is a number we get from Chad Moore in the USDA Foods Office. And that is how we determine what that factor is to convert sales into meals. So let's move on down. This is the pricing sheet that has to be completed by the food service management company for their proposal to be considered responsive. If it is not complete, then it is non-responsive. And a non-responsive proposal is just that. It doesn't meet the requirements of what's being asked for in the RFP. So each one of these sections has to be completed with pricing. You can see that we have that meal equivalent factor, and then the company submits the fixed price for meal equivalent fee for non-reimbursable sales. Now, once again, this does not include any catering. That is outside of the contract. We are talking about adult meals, and we are talking about a la carte sales. So that's what's included in this section, okay? And then at the bottom of the pricing sheet, the company submits what their guarantee is for school year 24-25. We will get to the guarantee section of the template. And then what is the value of the contract for 24-25? This is all information that has to be included when the company submits their proposal. Moving on down. We address the summer food service program. I know many of you participate in that program, and it's addressed not only here, but there's an appendix that addresses it as well. We want to know what's going to be happening with equipment. Refer to the definition of non-expendable equipment. Non-expendable equipment is that equipment that, like our small wares, like our silverware, those things that are replaceable, okay? And in the template, those small wares are included in the fixed meal pricing. But we're talking in this section about major equipment. That equipment that is valued over the district's capitalization threshold. In the absence of that, it would be equipment valued above $5,000, which is the state definition. And who purchases that? Well, typically it's the district, okay, that purchases that non-expendable equipment that has a life that goes over 1 year, that has a value above $5,000. But that is the district's decision if they want the company to purchase that. If they want the company to purchase that, remember this is a 1-year contract. What happens if the contract is not renewed? And so then it becomes important to specify what happens to that equipment if a company purchases it. So that second set of boxes has to be indicated. So moving on, let's scroll on down. What is included in the contract? It includes the proposal at the RFP, the food service management company proposal, any addendum, the question and answers, those all make up the contract. Moving on down. The agreement page, this is the agreement page that cannot be signed before your program specialist at Nutrition Services has approved this entire contract. Moving on down. This is your opportunity in Appendix A to request additional information or to services. You know, what are your expectations of the food service management company? We've included this example for you just to give you some ideas. You know, how many entrees? What's your expectation for the number of entrees that are going to be available to your students? What do you want on your fruit and vegetable bars? Any specifics that are unique to your school need to be included on Appendix A. What are your expectations? And this is totally up to the district. So we've included those things that we want you to consider, but there's also the opportunity to add additional requests or services that you want. Moving on down. Then we get into the specifics of the summer food service program. If you operate the summer food service program and the value of the contract, the portion of the summer food service program part of the contract is over $250,000. Then both a bid bond and performance bond is required by USDA. We scroll on down that page. And the company would put that information in. These are those appendixes that we talked about early on that the company is required to sign off on, to complete, to sign off on and include in their proposal. So we'll just move on down. Here's the scoring sheet that we provide. It's just an example. You can certainly have a different scoring sheet, but we find this beneficial because it addresses each one of those areas that the company is providing information on and that you're assigning a score to. Once again, this needs to be completed by each member of the committee. And then a total combined scoring sheet needs to be submitted, as well as the individual scoring sheets, to your program specialist. I'm trying to think. You need to provide your scoring committee information on how, you know, the range in assigning scores. Who is on your committee? That is your decision. Typically, it is the superintendent, the business manager. I've seen high school principals. I've seen school board members. It's those individuals that have knowledge of the food service program and can view the proposal and provide the scoring. So it's your determination of who's on your committee. It needs to be at a minimum 2 members, up to the discretion of the district. And Allie, is that almost to the end? I have referred to page 69 and 70 of the template for the chart of those districts that currently have food service management company contracts with the various food service management companies. If you look at the far right-hand column, first year of the contract, you can see what districts are in their first year of the contract. So right off, Ainsworth Public School is in the first year of their contract, this initial year. Okay, it's the initial year, and remember, it's the 4 annual renewals. And so we can see where these districts are in the contracting process and where they are in their contract. You will see your district listed, and that is how we track that you are in your 4th year renewal. And when you submitted your renewal, you received information from our office that you would be required to go through this process if you choose to continue contracting with a food service management company.
In addition to the RFP template that Sean just reviewed with you, exhibits A, B, C, and D, those examples were also emailed to you as well. So if you could pull those up, we will be reviewing those. These are also a required part of the RFP package. And these exhibits are where you will need to create that picture of your food service program for somebody who may have, never been to your school before or really have no idea how your food service program operates. So the first exhibit we'll be discussing today is Exhibit A, Site Information. This chart just lists some general information about each of your feeding site. And on this chart, you will need to list all sites where food is prepared and or eaten. So be sure to list any alternative feeding sites or vended locations here as well. If you have too many sites to fit on this chart, you can add additional pages, or you could put this information in a document or spreadsheet that you create yourself containing the same information here. I don't think that anybody on this training will have to do that, but if you do need to do that or you need additional pages, contact your NDE program specialist that you're working with, and we can help you if you do want additional pages for this chart here. In this example, in our made-up example for this school, you can see that this SFA has a high school, a middle school, 2 elementary schools, a preschool, a school store where kids can get meals, and then they also vend meals or contract with the private school and a childcare in town to provide meals to them as well. On this chart, you'll also need to indicate the enrollment for each site, as well as the free, reduced, and paid number of students at each site. So the free and reduced data information should come from your October 2023 claim data in the Child Nutrition Program or the CNP system, where you enter your monthly claim for reimbursement. You can see down, if you scroll down just a little bit, you can, under number 2 there is where they could click there to get to the CNP system. And in that system, you're already submitting your claim. You're claiming your meals by site, and you already have to report the number of free, reduced, and paid students at each site in the claim. So you can just easily pull that data from your October 2023 claim data, your claim for reimbursement for each site there. You'll also need on this chart to list the grades served at each site, and then if the meals are prepared on site at that location, or if they're prepared at a satellite location and then delivered to that site. It would also be a good idea to indicate either here or in the additional information box down below there if the meals, if they are being sent to a satellite location, are those meals being sent in bulk, where the staff at that satellite location then serve and portion out the meals? Or are the meals being sent as a pre-packaged unitized meal where the meal's already pre-portioned or pre-plated in a clamshell or something like that and ready for them to serve? The next column is the number of serving periods for lunch, and then your beginning and ending times of breakfast, lunch, and snack meal service. On the far right, you can see the last column there is the number of serving days. This is an important column to make sure that it's accurate, because food service management companies may base part of their outcome or their guarantee or their assumptions for their guarantee on your number of serving days. So, for example, maybe your preschool or pre-K only goes Monday through Friday, then that of course is going to be a different number of serving days for them versus, say, the elementary, middle, and high school students. In the additional information box down below, you can just add any or explain anything that you think would be important for the food service management company to know about your meal service sites and your serving times. You do not need to include the number of summer food service program serving days here. We do have another page here in Exhibit A where you can explain more about your summer food service program. Continuing on to the next page of Exhibit A. This also is site information, and it is the services to be provided. So actually the next 2 pages of charts are meant to be like a snapshot picture of the services to be provided at each location. Once again, you're going to want to list all the feeding sites or locations where food is prepared and or delivered. And then on this chart, these are just check boxes, and you can go through and check all the services to be provided by the food service management company at each location. So this first page you can see is divided by the dark black lines into sections. So there's a section for breakfast, a section for lunch, the after school snack program, non-reimbursable snack, or an AM morning or afternoon milk break. And Sean talked a little bit about that. So that morning and afternoon milk break, those are the non-reimbursable service that some schools provide to elementary grades, where they either provide milk or milk and a snack item that's then either paid for by families or paid from the general fund, because there's no reimbursement for a morning or afternoon milk break or morning or afternoon snack. And then the last column is the special milk program. So if, let's say, your preschoolers don't have access to breakfast or lunch, you could participate in the special milk program and provide milk through that program for them. So for this example, for each site, you can see, let's say, like at breakfast, you're going to mark if that site has offer versus serve. If the preschool is following the child and adult care food program meal pattern for preschoolers, so that means they either eat family style in their classroom, or they eat separately in the classroom, or maybe they go through the serving line as a group and eat at their own table in the cafeteria, then they would be following that CACFP meal pattern for preschool, which is a different meal pattern than the K through 5. If you'll also want to mark if you're offering, any alternative types of breakfast, such as a grab and go breakfast, breakfast in the classroom, breakfast after the bell. Mark if you're offering any a la carte sales at breakfast. So that would be things like extra milks, second entrees, any smart snack items. If you offer any of those, you would mark a la carte. And then, do you sell adult meals at breakfast to teachers? And if you vend meals to any other programs or locations. So you can see down below the Kids Corner Childcare and St. James Elementary. You need to declare if the FSMC or food service management company needs to provide contract meals to those locations. And those, once again, are the meals sold to other SFAs or childcare where your school, your SFA, has a vendor agreement with them. So you would mark what all meals they would be responsible for providing those locations as well. Once again, there's an additional information box. So if there's something that you can't capture in that chart, you can add any additional information down below. Next page. This is a continuation of those services to be provided. On this page, you only need to list your sites that participate in these programs. So we have the Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Program, the Summer Food Service Program, abbreviated SFSP, the Child and Adult Care Food Program, abbreviated CACFP, and then we also have a column for others. So list the sites that participate in these programs and mark the programs, as applicable or as appropriate. And if food is being provided or purchased for any other group on a regular basis, you could indicate that under the other category, and then you'll want to explain that down in the additional information comments about what that may be. Okay. Next page. This is additional information about your food service program. So this is your chance to provide additional information that has not been captured in the RFP template or any of these exhibits. And it's also your chance to further clarify and explain things that maybe can't be captured in a chart. Sometimes you just have to write it out or explain it. We have listed several examples of information you might want to include and the level of depth that we're looking for on these questions. I'm not going to read through every single question and answer here, but here's where you're going to explain things like who's going to operate the point of service, any delivery information or instructions if food's delivered to other sites. If you serve meals to preschoolers, what meals do the preschoolers have access to? Where do they eat those meals? Are they commingled or do they eat separately? You can keep scrolling down, Allie. Are there any alternative feeding services like styles of breakfast, such as your grab and go, breakfast after the bell? Do you currently provide contract or vended meals? And if so, who's responsible for the delivery and pickup of those? Are there any special delivery instructions? Are non-reimbursable milk breaks or those snacks provided? If so, what grades are they for? What time does that need to be available? How is it paid for? Do the families pay for it, or is it paid by the general fund? Are you planning any grade reconfigurations, remodeling of existing sites, or new school buildings in the next 5 years? That's important to know. Do you currently have daycare, or will you be adding daycare in the next 5 years? And is that something that the FSMC would be responsible for providing meals for? Preschool and daycares are getting more and more common at districts. So does the SFA currently operate the summer food service program? If so, providing more information about that. So when does your program typically operate? What meals do you serve? Do you serve breakfast and lunch or just lunch? What's your anticipated number of serving days, and how many kids do you usually have for your summer food service program? Does the SFA currently participate in the fresh fruit and vegetable program? If so, you're going to want to describe your expectation for the fresh fruit and vegetable program. How often do you want that program to be offered? Is the FSMC responsible for the nutrition education that goes with that? Does the SFA currently participate in the after-school snack program? And if so, who's responsible for training those staff on program requirements, food safety, civil rights? And then if you participate in the special milk program, if you participate in the CACFP at-risk after-school snack or at-risk supper, describing your policies for things like snow days, late start days, early release days, or any other special, instructions that you would want the food service management company to take into consideration for menus and things like that. Do you participate in farm to school activities such as Harvest of the Month, the Nebraska Thursdays? If so, describe what you currently do with those. Are you currently participating in any other grant funded programs like our local Food for Schools program? If so, describing about that And then you can also include any other information. Maybe there's not a question on here about something that you want the FSMC to know, or that you really want to describe to them, or something you're wanting to change. There's a box for that too. Those are all fillable. The text, does wrap and get smaller, so you're not limited to just that box there. So you can really write as much as you need to in each of those, or add it down in the additional information box that you need to. So please, please, please refer to these examples as you're completing the RFP. And as you read through these questions, as we're kind of going through those, if you don't know the answer to some of these questions right now is the time to start investigating and finding out how some of these things work, because you may not be, involved in the day-to-day operation of all these. So start doing some investigation, start looking into this so that you can really explain them really well here. The more detailed you can be will hopefully mean, fewer questions from potential FSMCs, and then also fewer questions and back and forth with us, your NDE specialist. As Sean was saying, a lot of times these might have to go back and forth between us asking clarifying questions or making sure it's complete. So the more complete this document is when you submit it, the faster you will be able to get it approved and move on with your process. If there are questions that don't pertain to your SFA in this section, you can indicate that with an NA or not applicable there as well. Next page. The last piece of Exhibit A for your site information is to insert some information as a PDF behind this page here. So you'll need to insert a copy of any vendor agreements with other SFAs or organizations. So if you have those private schools or child cares that you vend meals to, insert that agreement behind this page. And then you'll also want to insert your sponsor and site applications for all programs the SFA participates in, that your school participates in. So for the school meals program, that would include your sponsor application, your site summary page, and then all of your site applications. For the summer food service program, that would also include your sponsor application and your site applications for each site where you operate the summer food service program. And then the child and adult care food program, your sponsor and site applications if you operate that program as well. You can print these from the Nutrition Services CMP website. So to get there, you'll go to Applications as highlighted in that top blue bar, and then click on your 23-24 application packet. In that application packet, then you're going to need to print or save it as a PDF, your sponsor application. And then down below that second, on the left-hand side there, that second highlighted one is the site applications. So once you click on site applications, that's going to bring you to that next screenshot there. And that's what we're referring to as your site summary page. So you'll want to also print that. That just gives a nice snapshot there. So you can see this district is has CEP, they do lunch, they do severe need breakfast, they do area eligible snack, and where they operate the fresh fruit and vegetable program, their current percentage of free and reduced, or from their October 2022 claim, their percentage of free and reduced students at each site. So that's a nice snapshot too to look at. So either save that as a PDF or do a screenshot, somehow print that page and include that as well. And then from there, you can click on Select All to select all of those site applications, and then click on Print Selected Site Applications, and that should print them all or save them as a PDF for you all at one time. If that doesn't work for some reason, of course, you can go into each individual site application and print or save those as well. So you're going to insert all those, your vendor agreements, your sponsor and site applications behind this page here, and save this all as Exhibit A. You'll then upload your Exhibit A into SharePoint, which Allie is going to be discussing later in this training. And The other thing I wanted to say is make sure you keep these exhibits saved as their own separate exhibits. So don't try to combine like exhibit A, B, C, and D all together into one big exhibit. One, because it's usually too large of a file to go through email because there's so much information in these. And two, it could mess up some of your fillable boxes if you try to combine them all into one thing. So you'll just insert everything into exhibit A and save it as exhibit A and then upload it to SharePoint. And we will be talking about that later in the training here. So we can move on to exhibit B, Allie. Exhibit B, on this page, you're going to mark all programs you currently operate. So check those boxes and then insert 21 days worth of menus for all programs that your school, your SFA currently participates in. So be sure to include menus for all grade levels. If menus are different by grade group, for example, the elementary may have a different menu from the high school. Maybe the elementary only has 3 entree choices and the high school has 7 entree choices. Then you'll want to include, a menu for each grade group so that FSMCs can see that. And then the menus should be from the current school year, so school year 23-24. If the preschoolers eat separately in their classroom, or they're served family style, or they eat, they come through the cafeteria as a separate group and they're not commingled, then they are following the CACFP meal pattern for preschoolers, which, like I said, is a different meal pattern than the K-5. So you should, in that case, also have a separate menu for the preschool as well. Then you'll want to include a list of any a la carte items sold with their selling prices. For the summer food service program, you'll include your 2023 SFSP summer menus for all meals that you provide during the summer. So if you serve both breakfast and lunch, you'll need an SFSP menu for breakfast and an FSSP menu for lunch. And then don't forget to include any of those funded programs and including all meals that you provide to those as well. The FSMC is also required to submit a 21-day menu for each program that you currently participate in and that you plan to participate in the future. Just some reminders here. Make sure that you submit 21 days worth of menus or meals. A common mistake we see when menus are submitted is maybe a school only submits 1 month's worth of menus, but that month has less than 21, meals on it, less than 21 feeding days on it. So you might need to submit 2 months worth of menus to get those 21 days, as a lot of months maybe just have 20 feeding days. Also ensure that all your menus are labeled, including which programs they're for, which meals they're for, which grade groups they're for. It's, really confusing and really hard to tell if just a bunch of menus are submitted, but there's no labels on them. So make sure, we can tell which ones are your summer food service program menus, what is your after school snack program menu, which ones are breakfast, lunch, and what grades are they for. So just make sure those are all labeled as well. You're going to gather all that information and insert those menus as a PDF document behind this page where you've checked off your programs and save that as Exhibit B. So that'll be your Exhibit B. Moving on to Exhibit C. Exhibit C is your food service financial information. So the financial information section should be filled out for the current school year 23-24, and it's just going to be starting July 1st, 2023 through the end of December 2023. In the interest of time, I'm not going to go through this line by line, but just keep in mind as you're filling out that financial information, this is obviously a very important section to FSMCs as they prepare their bids. And so the more accurate you can be, the more detailed you can be, hopefully that's also going to help you get the best fixed price possible. There are fillable text boxes to explain or add any more information as needed for each category. With your revenue from the cash sales, that first section here, this information can be gathered from your point of service sales reports and reported in the categories, broken out and reported in the categories listed here. This will, of course, vary by school. So depending on what programs and services are offered will depend on what lines you're going to fill out on this. Down under the state and federal reimbursement funding, this information can be mostly obtained from your claims from reimbursement. Once again, it's going to depend on which programs you currently operate. Under the supply chain assistance funds line, you'll want to include any leftover funds from your first 3 rounds of supply chain assistance funds. There's also a 4th round coming, and presumably by the beginning of December, you will know that amount as well for the 4th round. So if you opt in to receive a 4th round of supply chain assistance funds, you would know that amount and could include that there. That might be a good place to add a comment about, if it's the 4th round or if it's kind of explain what the supply chain assistance funds are from. And if you have a transfer of general funds, you'll want to explain that in the box provided, as a FSMC will want to know why that was as well. So if you transfer general funds, make sure you include that, as well as we've included a line for if you received the local Foods for Schools grant and you have money for that, you'll want to include that information as well. On the next page, the food cost and delivery expenses would really only apply if you were previously self-operated, which I don't think is anyone on this training today. So under labor, include district salaried and hourly employees. If you pay any district staff out of the nonprofit school food service account for duties related to the school meals program, you'll want to report those figures here. Under the food service management company contract expense, this section applies if you have a current FSMC. So here's where you're going to report the amount that you've paid to your current food service management company from July 1st through December 2023. You'll report that amount in that line item there. Under SFA direct expenses, include any other purchases or vendors that you've paid from the nonprofit school service account in school year 23-24 from July 1st through December of 2023. And then explain anything like equipment purchases or repairs in those fillable text boxes. Once again, the more information you can provide on these expenses, the better. You do not have to put something in every category here, so that's fine if you don't have an expense for each thing here. Only list those that you had a revenue or an expense for. And then finally at the bottom, you're just going to put in the name of the person completing that information. On the next page is where you're going to insert some more documentation, some more financial documents. The first thing is the SFA's school board approved or proposed school food service budget for school year 22-23 and 23-24. And you can see Allie's moving the cursor around that. So this is typically what districts have submitted in the past. So this budget statement and clarification of tax, just because it does provide a little bit more information than just a line item for the school nutrition fund. So this is typically what we've seen school districts submit for that, and this is acceptable, and that's great if you can submit that for your school board approved budget for 22-23 and 23-24. And then the last piece of Exhibit C is your vendor paid list for purchases from the nonprofit food service account for the previous school year, so July 1st through June 30th. I've heard it called vendor paid list. I've heard it called transaction summary report. So kind of depending on your software, it may depend what it's called, but that we've included an example of what that looks like. It lists each vendor and the amount paid to each one. It should not include student lunch account information. So if it does, and you're not able to remove it, please black that out with a marker or something before you upload that as a PDF. This RFP is a public document, so we don't want to have any identifiable student information in this document or the attachments here. So you'll gather those documents, insert the budgets and the vendor paid list as PDF documents behind this page, and save that all as Exhibit C. Up next, we have Exhibit D, and the first page here is just the list of all the charts and attachments in Exhibit D that the SFA must complete or compile in this section. There are several items that once again need to be inserted as PDF documents in this section, and I've underlined those in red where it says attach, so you can kind of go through and make sure that you've attached all those. You can also refer to the fixed price RFP checklist for school year 23-24 that was provided in the email sent on October 31st, along with the RFP templates and exhibits. There was a checklist as well to help you ensure that all these documents for all these exhibits have been included. Next page. The first chart is chart 1A, a labor worksheet for the SFA. This should be completed by the SFA for the current school year. So for school year 23-24 for the entire year, list any staff that have food service responsibilities, including any district food service employees and any district employees with food service responsibilities, such as point of service or bookkeeping. If you have a current FSMC, we commonly see a bookkeeper or a secretary that maybe does a point of service or submits the monthly claims for reimbursement listed here. You can see here they have some administration, doing an admin assistant, and then they also have 2 paras as cashiers. They are going to be retained by the SFA for the term of the contract. So you need to indicate here if the employee will be retained and paid by the FSA during the term of the contract, or if you want that to be an FSMC responsibility in the new contract. So, if you didn't want those paras continue to be cashier, then you would mark no, that it would be an FSMC responsibility moving forward. Indicate if they're paid by the general fund or if they're paid by the nonprofit school food service account. That's what that acronym stands for there. So if they're paid out of the nonprofit school food service account for their time, their hours, specifically doing the cashiering or submitting the claim, that's an allowable cost from the nonprofit school food service account. If you pay it from there, indicate that here. Some schools just continue to pay for that from the general fund, and that's fine too. If that's how you do it, then just indicate general fund there. You'll include their hourly rate, daily hours, number of paid days, their total annual wage, if they receive any unemployment compensation, and then if either your SFA employees have a union contract, you would need to indicate yes or no for that here. Be sure to also attach or provide those union contracts for SFA employees. So if your district employees have a union contract, but also if your current FSMC employees have a union contract, you would need to attach that union contract here as well. So for either SFA or FSMC employees, if they're under a union contract, you would need to include that as well. Moving on to chart 1B. Chart 1B is the fringe benefits cost worksheet. Once again, it's to be completed by you, the SFA, for the current school year, for school year 23-24, for any of those staff that either have food service responsibilities or do the point of service or submit the claim. This chart just asks for the employee name, but it is helpful if you could also list the position title as well, as we have here from up above. Next slide, or next page. Chart 2A is the vended contract meals sold to other schools or programs. You're going to list the school or program name, and then this should be the average number of meals provided to that school or program daily. So list the meals or snacks or milks that are sold and the average number daily, including any adult meals that are sent as well. And note that on this chart that the milk on this chart would be for those non-reimbursable milk breaks that you would be providing. Next chart is chart 2B. On this one, you're just going to attach your point of service sales summary reports. So including student meal counts, a la carte sales, and adult meal counts. We'll need those for school year 22-23 and school year 23-24, a year-to-date total, a summary report. So if you started, school in August through December for this school year 23-24. Only summary reports are needed, so monthly totals or a year in total. We don't need you to include detailed transactions for individual days or individual students. Summary is really the key word here. We're just looking for a summary. So insert these as PDF documents behind this page for chart 2B. Moving on to chart 3. Chart 3 is the prices for student and adult meals. So these are the prices that you charge to your students and that you charge to your adults. So you'll want to list your current student and adult prices for the current school year, as well as your projected prices for school year 24-25. If your prices for 24-25 are unknown at this, which they may be at the time you're completing this, provide an estimated price increase. Now, keep in mind, there will very likely be an increased cost from the food service management companies due to increasing food cost, inflation, labor cost, continuing supply chain issues. So keep that in mind when you are projecting those prices for 24-25. Next is chart 4. This is the SFA's charge policy. So on this one, you're just going to choose or click the option that best describes your SFA's charge policy. You'll list the food items provided for any alternate meals. If that's applicable, list what is provided for those alternate meals. And then also remember to attach a copy of the district's written charge policy, and you'll insert that as a PDF document behind this page in Exhibit D. Next is chart 5. This is a copy of your reimbursement claims. So you'll want to print or save your copies as a PDF, your reimbursement claims from the Nutrition Services CNP website for all programs that you currently participate in for the current school year. So August through December are the claims that we're looking for this school year. And if you operated the summer food service program, you'll want to include those claims for the summer of 2023. So last summer's summer food service programs claims as well. When you're saving the claims or making them into a PDF, make sure that you click on summary view and then click on show site meal details. So that second red arrow there where it's highlighted show site meal details, click on that before you print or save that claim as a PDF. That way it's going to show you how many meals were claimed at each of the feeding sites. It breaks it down a little bit more. And this screenshot here shows you an example of how to do this. So if you need help, you can of course reach out to your NDE program specialist on how to get that view, but you do want it broken down by site meal details. And you'll save all of those claims and insert those as PDF documents behind this chart 5. The next chart is chart 6, USDA entitlement allocations and usage for school year 22-23 and the current school year 23-24. This information can be found at the Nebraska DHHS Food Distribution or SDA CNP web at that link on that page. That'll be under, once you click on that link and get in there, you should have your own login for your district. You can go to the entitlement tab, and that's where you can see that example that we've included down below. We have listed the contact information for Chad and Brian at the DHHS Commodities Office. If you need help finding this information, one of them should be able to help you. The USDA Foods Commodity Office it's a separate office from us, so they do have a separate system and so on. So if you need help with any of that commodity information, they should be able to help you here. But we have, like I said, included an example of what this should look like. So once you have that, you could either put it directly on this page if you wanted to, if it would fit, if you want to snip it. Otherwise, since it's 2 years worth, you may have to include both of those years as a PDF behind this page in Exhibit D here. Next is chart 7, and that's your school calendar for school year 24-25. You'll insert that for the next school year. So draft form is sufficient. As we know, you might not have your completed or official school calendar done at this point, but either put that directly on this page or you can insert it as a PDF document behind this page. So your school calendar for 24-25 goes here. And up next, we have chart 8, the designation of program expenses and duties. On this chart, you're going to mark for each item if it will be an SFA expense, an or duty, a food service management company expense or duty, or if it's not applicable. This is a very important chart. We've had, SFAs tell us that they have had to go back to this when monitoring and enforcing their contracts. So because of that, we do recommend that in most cases that you don't mark, both FSMC and SFA. So it's not a responsibility, both of your responsibility. You really need to mark, who you want to do that. If you, sometimes help with cleaning something, or, you filled in, that's one thing. But if it becomes to be an issue or a problem, you want to have it in writing to be able to go back and say, hey, this is really an FSMC responsibility. And you want to be able to enforce that and have it in writing. So you do not have to mark these exactly like this example. This is just an example, and this chart should reflect what you want for your SFA. Go up just a little bit, Ollie, on the under equipment and facilities. Please note that this is a fixed price contract, so there are no bill backs, or there should be no cost reimbursable pieces inside a fixed price contract. So expenses for things like small wares or other things can't be purchased by the FSMC and then billed back to the district outside of the fixed price per meal. So that should be included as part of the fixed price per meal. So usually replacement of expendable or minor equipment is marked an FSMC expense because of that. The point of sale accountability down on the next page or down below here, if you keep scrolling. Of course, that's another important one that should match up with what you've said previously in the RFP. Is the FSMC going to be in charge of the point of sale? Is the SFA going to be in charge of doing the point of sale? Maybe you both are, so that could be an instance where you would mark both. And then for the record supporting the claim for reimbursement, that might be another instance where it really would be both the SFA and the FSMC responsible. You're both responsible for having those records available to support your claim for reimbursement at any time, at a review or any time that they would be requested. And then at the bottom, just include any other requirement for employment by the district. So maybe you have your own background checks that you require outside of what the FSMC requires for employment. So if you have something like that, make sure to include those as well. And any other things that have not been included on this chart that you want to make sure is known as the FSMC responsibility or an SFA responsibility, there's additional lines there where you can include your own items as well. Moving on to chart 9. Chart 9 is an equipment list by feeding site. So you're going to complete the equipment list by feeding site by either using this form that we've provided for you here in the RFP, or you can also provide your own equipment inventory if you already have that information in a spreadsheet or document. And it includes, all this information and how many and who owns it. If you want to use this fillable template and you have more than one site, you'll have to make copies. Most districts just make copies of it and fill it out for each individual site. So there are several examples of equipment listed in each section of this form, as well as additional spaces to add your own. For each item or piece of equipment, you're going to indicate how many are located at that site, and if it's a district-owned piece of equipment or an FSMC-owned piece of equipment. And then at the very end on the last page, there are some more additional spaces to add additional equipment. As of course, this is not an all-inclusive list of everything that you could possibly have in your kitchens or at your sites. So you can add things as well. Once you have, this does need to be done by site. So once you have completed all these charts are filled out, all your documents are inserted, you'll save this whole section as Exhibit D and upload that to SharePoint, which Allie is going to be talking about coming up here next.
Thanks, Erica. Just give me a minute here to get back to the slides.
Sure.
And the good news is we are almost done. We have 2 short sections left, and then we can address any questions. So not too much longer here. Okay, so as Erica mentioned, can you see my screen, Erica? Sorry, I have lost my toolbar.
No, I can't see it.
Okay. Here we go. Let's try that. Okay.
Yep, I can see it now.
Okay, thank you. So we have now taken a look at the RFP template and all the exhibits and all the information that you're going to need to complete and submit to us. And so Erica, I think, mentioned this document checklist. This was also sent in the email from Sean. This is going to be very useful for you as you're completing each section and making sure that you have all the information for the template and the exhibits that need to be submitted. So this will be required to complete this and check it off as you complete each section. So I just wanted to point that out in the slide. And so before we move on to how to submit the items, I am going to touch a little bit on the pre-proposal meeting. For some of you who maybe have not done this part, or it's been several years, we just like to give you a little bit more information. Once you have that pre-proposal meeting date and the day has come and you're hosting this meeting, just make sure you have a system in place to record who is in attendance. We'll need the names and email addresses of those companies that attend your pre-proposal meeting. You might have a map or agenda ready for that day. If your district has multiple buildings, and again, you're going to give this tour when school is in session because the companies are going to want to see the students in the service line. And so you may want to provide a map if you have a larger district, or if you're going to go to multiple different buildings, have an agenda. You're going to meet in one place first and talk about the tours and get everyone signed in. And then from there, you're going to head, to which school in what order. So that might be helpful for you. Also, it's really important to have someone who is knowledgeable about the food service program. If that's not the person giving the tour, that's okay, but you need to have someone available. It can be another person from the district, because they're going to need to talk in depth about the details of the kitchen and the service that's happening. And so if that's not you and you're not real familiar with kitchen equipment, I'm going to share some photos of all the things that need to be included, but you also need to have someone with you, if that's not you, who can speak about it. So food service management companies are looking to understand the flow of operations in your kitchens. And they're also looking to collect any details that are helpful when running your particular establishment. So again, providing as many details to them as you can will help them determine if their program fits your needs. In my past experience working for a management company and attending these meetings, I can tell you that this was a determining factor to help us prepare a solid proposal. So any missing details could cause more questions to come later, or if something gets missed entirely, this could have a large impact on your program results. So food service management companies are taking and gathering information from the RFP that you publish, and additionally from this tour, this visual tour that they're going to attend, to build a program and a proposal that fits your needs. So keep that in mind in your tour. So some specific things you can include, make sure you're visiting, like I said, each building that you're serving lunch out of. I know sometimes that can mean that you're not spending a lot of time at each building, especially if you have several buildings serving lunch at the same time. But if you can, try to spend a little bit of time actually inside the kitchen and in the service area where the lunch is being served and the students are eating. You'll want to make sure that you show the companies any storage areas that you have. Even if this is a storage area that's not necessarily connected to the school building, you might have an off-site storage building that would be helpful for them to see. They'll want to see any delivery areas, delivery docks, or if you have to transport between the schools supplies, any vehicles that are used for transporting within the district. Again, make sure you visit each kitchen that day, and hopefully you can get there during service while the kids are eating. So in this picture, I specifically highlighted the major equipment, the storerooms. You can see the walk-in coolers, really just the large pieces of equipment within the kitchen. Also focus on, even if you're not using, you have this wonderful mixer and it's got a cover on it, make sure that you're showing each piece of equipment. And here you also see some ovens and steamers and some holding units, sometimes called proofing units. Again, any large pieces of equipment that's being used in the kitchen. Make sure you include those service lines. And in these pictures, you can see there's different types of food bars. Maybe your school currently does a specialty bar. Maybe there's a separate condiment bar in the service line, a flavor station, any salad bars. If you're doing any sort of extra sales at your district, this is often referred to as a la carte sales. So you'll want to make sure you show those areas. Sometimes districts have a separate area that's maybe like a grab and go station that maybe isn't necessarily in the kitchen or service area. Maybe it's down the hall to give students quick access to a grab and go meal if they're leaving for off campus during lunch. And any sort of vending that's going on in the district, make sure that that's included in your tour as well. Again, you'll want to have the tour. We've mentioned this several times on a day that school is in session and lunch is being served. An important part of preparing a proposal is understanding the flow of the student lines. So point of sale, the POS station or cashier station is important to be included. The management companies want to know how many stations are currently being operated and how quickly they're going to want to monitor the flow of children through the line. Any milk coolers or drink coolers. And another important part is drinking water is required to be provided during lunch service. So if you have to have a separate drink station, just so they understand how water is being provided to the students in that line. And again, just some more pictures. This is our last picture for the tour. You know, walk-in coolers, reach-in coolers, anything that's refrigerated or frozen, they'll want to see that storage area, go in, take a look. Here I have a picture of the dish machine and the pot and pan area. So just be sure you're very thorough with that and ensure that you have the information needed or you have someone with you who can further explain those areas in detail. And reach out to us if you have any questions as the tour approaches in your district. We hope you'll find these tips helpful. And we're going to move on to the last section in our presentation today. So you've learned about all this great information that you're going to need to submit to us, and you might be wondering how to get it to your specialist so that we can start reviewing and work into the approval process. So you're going to get started, and once you are ready to start submitting pieces to us, we're going to be using a SharePoint site. And so I'm going to go through those instructions today. So we ask that you do not email the RFP package or any exhibits to the specialist, but instead we will be using this SharePoint site where you will submit the information into your folder. For those of you who don't know, SharePoint is Microsoft's collaboration platform. I like to compare it to Google Drive. I know a lot of schools use Google Drive. This is a similar format. SharePoint is safe and secure, and it only gives access with permissions. So each of you have permission to access your specific folder, and this is where you can submit your documents, and we'll go through detailed pictures of that. And just some general file saving practices to keep in mind. As you're submitting documents to SharePoint, make sure you're keeping your personal copy of every document that's uploaded. You'll be spending a lot of time on the documents, so ensure you're saving as you go and uploading copies to SharePoint as you work through the process of review and editing. You will have access to the site along with an instruction guide, a quick reference guide that we have shared with you. The pictures I share with you today explaining the site will also be in the quick guide. So if you need to go back to the quick guide to refresh yourself on how to submit the information, make sure you do that. And of course, we're always here to help. So along the way, if you have trouble accessing or getting into the site, or if you are not understanding how to upload, just make sure you reach out to us. So let's take a look at the site and how you'll get logged in. So this is sort of our introductory slide. This is what the SharePoint slide is going to look like. Each of you this morning should have received an access email invitation that I sent out. If you want to go to it now and follow along, you can certainly do that. I'm just going to talk through from the email invitation to the actual SharePoint site and then talk you through how to upload a few documents. I do want to point out, as we're talking about this email that you'll receive from me, it will be from my education.ne.gov email, the one I have listed here on the bottom bullet. This is an email that's directly linked to my SharePoint access. It's just the way the NDE has set up our access. If you need access again or have any questions, I ask that you use my nebraska.gov email. This is the email that I use for regular communication. So with that being said, if you are checking your inbox right now and you're not seeing an email from me, make sure you check your spam and junk folders, because oftentimes it doesn't recognize this email because I don't use it other than for this topic. So again, in your spam or junk folders, all of you that are on the call today should have an email from me at my education.ne.gov email address. And it will look similar to this picture here. So in this example, we have Blair Public Schools. It's saying, I have shared a folder with you. And so I'll talk through the next steps on how to get access. So once you open the email, it will prompt you to request a verification code. The screen will look similar to what's shown here. So you're going to select send code. And just as general practice, you can see on this screen that this person used a Gmail account. And I just want to point out too that any email will work. So click send code. And once you do that, a second box will appear that will give you your access code. So you'll need to copy that code. And I also want you to take note that the code is only good for 15 minutes after you request it. So if you don't continue the process of logging in or you get distracted, you'll just have to go back and request a new code after 15 minutes. So once you've got your code, the verification screen will pop up and you can enter your code into the box that you've copied and click verify. It's recommended that you check the box to keep me signed in so you don't have to get a code each time you want to enter the site. So copy your code and check the box, keep me signed in, and then click verify. If you don't keep me signed in, you'll have to go and get a new code each time you try to log in. So now you've hit enter, it will bring you to your assigned folder. Each person who has access will have access to their folder only. And in this example, we're using Crofton Community Schools. Each of you should have specific folders down below, and only you have access to your school's folder. Again, if you have other staff who need access, if someone's going to be helping you, like a bookkeeper or a business manager or a secretary that you want them to help you submit documents once they're done, you'll just need to let me know and I'll give them specific access to your folder. Otherwise, you are the only one who can access your folder. And so let's take a look at the site a little bit more. You're logged in now, you're in your assigned folder. So on this example, you can see as you prepare the RFP, you'll be working in those exhibits A through D, like Erica mentioned, and then additionally, the folder RFP template, as Sean mentioned. So we have RFP template on the bottom. This is the folder where your completed template will go that Sean shared first. Exhibits A through D each have their own folder. So you'll open the folder and each exhibit information will go in that assigned folder. Again, be sure to keep copies of everything before you upload. And you'll see some additional folders at the top here. We'll use those as we get through the approval process. There'll be additional information needed from you. So as we get further in the process, we'll be using the other folders. But for this initial beginning part, as you're completing the RFP, again, you're looking at the RFP template folder and exhibits A through D. So now that we understand how the folders work, next we'll look at how you would upload a document. So you can see the navigation line at the top. I've highlighted it here in yellow. So it's telling you where you're at in your folder. You're in Crofton Community Schools folder. And now I've clicked on that Exhibit A folder. And you can see my folder is empty because I don't have anything in there yet. It tells you that. So let's add something. So to add a document in my Exhibit A folder, I would click the upload button at the top, and it brings a drop-down box, and then you'll select files, and that will bring you to your files on your computer. From your files, you'll select your saved and labeled PDF. So you can see our Exhibit A sponsor and site information has now been loaded into the folder Exhibit A. A couple additional things you can see some time and date stamping on here that occurs. You'll be able to see when the file was uploaded and if it was uploaded by you or modified by anyone. So that's good information to know, the name of the file, when it was uploaded, and who last modified the file. Once you have the file in the folder, if you click on the 3 yellow dots next to the file name, it will also bring you to another drop-down menu. This is where you could additionally open the file if you wanted to view it in SharePoint and make sure you had the correct file or the correct version. Or you could delete the file if you accidentally added the wrong document into the folder. Or you could rename it if you didn't have it named properly or you were getting confused because you had so many documents in here and you wanted to rename them. You could select those options from the drop-down box, the 3 dots. Be sure to name your file again to the corresponding folder name. So my example was Exhibit A and it's in the Exhibit A folder. So when you're uploading into the other exhibit folders, just make sure that your documents are labeled accordingly. This will help you keep organized. It will help you be able to fill out your checklist and complete all that information for us, so we're not having to go back and ask if something is missing. Another important thing to mention on here is once the PDF is in the SharePoint site, you won't be able to edit your PDF from this site. So if you upload a document and you find either your specialist finds that it needs edits or you notice an error, you'll have to take your copy off your computer, make the edits, and then upload it back to SharePoint. SharePoint doesn't let you edit PDFs or fillable form PDFs. So I just want to mention that too. You can view it in here and you can share them and rename them and delete them, but you can't edit them. Let me move on. So I hope if anybody wants to unclick and share if they were able to get access and get to your folder, that would be helpful. Again, SharePoint's going to help streamline the information that we need to review after you've completed the documents and get you to the approval process. So it eliminates searching emails. We found that sending it through email was not the most efficient way to receive the information. Oftentimes emails are limited to attachment size as well. So we were running into a lot of roadblocks there. So utilize SharePoint, utilize your quick guide. We'll help you navigate this. It really is. We got a lot of great feedback. Last year was the first year we started using this site to submit documents, and we got a lot of great feedback from the people using it, that it was very user-friendly and easy to do. And again, it's safe, secure, and user-friendly because it has that limited access. And also, if anybody needs me to share additional access, again, just make sure you're letting me know in this call or emailing me their email address so I can share that. That's what I need to share that out. Okay, that is it. Are we going to move to questions? I think there was maybe one question in the chat. And if you guys want to unmute and ask any questions or want to to review anything as well, we can do that now.
If there's not any more questions, then we'll end today's presentation. If you have questions after today's presentation, please reach out to your program specialist. We will try and address any issues you have, any questions you have. And thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it. I think you'll find this very helpful as you proceed in completing the RFP template and exhibits. So thank you very much.